All right, so as I was saying, my dad messed up my shot. I was picking the ball off the shoe rack. I'm not going to go into details, but it's about how you move into shots, and you can't shoot correctly. You can't move into the shot correctly. That'll make you shoot right if you're picking the ball off of a rack and stepping into it. Now, I'm not going to go into details, but because I don't want to make good shooters thing. But as I said, my mom was upset. Ryan, you're a shooter. You're a scorer. What's wrong with you? My dad was, I was a starting point guard on varsity as a freshman. My dad was like, Marley, he's playing fine. He's playing fine. Stop it. My mom's like, he's not playing fine. He's playing terrible. Ryan, get your head together. What's wrong with you? It was because of the shoe weight machine, but I didn't know that at the time. So then it was because of the shoe weight machine and my dad telling me to do the wrong thing. Because my dad, because I'm shooting, because the shoe weight machines make me do it wrong, and then my dad tries to fix it and tells me to do something even more wrong. So now my shot's just completely messed up. That was in the 10th grade when my shot got completely messed up. But at that time, it was because of the shoe weight machine only. But so, or mainly, but then as I said, my grandpa comes in. My grandpa's, I'm like, Dad, can you please help me? This is the 10th grade. I'm shooting shots in the backyard. My dad's like, your shot looks terrible. I can't help you anymore. You fucking suck. So he goes inside. I'm like, Dad, come on. I need your help. He's like, you ask me again, I'm gonna fuck you up. And then he grabs me, throws me to the ground. Okay. So again, it wasn't my fault. It was because of the shoe weight machine. But my dad thought there was something wrong with me. Then my mom comes in. My mom's like, or my grandpa comes in from Kauai. My grandpa's like, well, Ryan, everything, you can't make things happen. You can't force things. You have to just accept. My mom's like, then my mom starts mimicking my grandpa, not understanding my grandpa. Yeah, Ryan, you just have to accept. You can't make things happen, Ryan. Everything is fine. So then, as I said, my mom brings me to the psychologist, and the psychologist, because my mom, when she brought me to the psychologist, my mom was saying like, Ryan was such a wonderful boy. He was so amazing. But then he just became a jerk out of nowhere. No one knows why. It was because of the shoot away machine, because my dad and the shoot away machine. But my mom was, I didn't become a jerk. If anything, like I said, my grandpa's whole thing is like, there is no innocent victim. I was a victim. And that's why I think I was a part of the reason why it even forced me more on the side of the victims. Because I'm like, dude, I really was a huge victim. So then my mom's like, she says, he just became a jerk, and so then the psychologist tells me that she talked to my mom. She said there's nobody she's ever come in contact with that is worse than my mom. She said my mom is the worst she has ever come in contact with in all of her years as a psychologist. She said your mom calls you names. She's a name caller. She said that she could tell I was a good kid, and that in my swag flow was good. Everything was good, but she said I could tell it was a good kid. And she was like, the problem in this family, the problem in this situation is your mom. That's what the psychologist said. Then guess what happened the next day? My mom tells me, you're never going to that psychologist again. She sends me to a new psychologist. So my point is, what my mom has to realize is the problem, she doesn't realize that she was not acting appropriate. But then, as I said, in college, I ended up quitting basketball my sophomore year. But I discovered the quadrant model, the theory of everything. And I showed my mom and dad. I showed my dad when he came. Like I said, things were fine in college. My dad and mom came to Thanksgiving. My freshman year, everything was fine. I was good. I stopped asking my dad for help with my shot. Everything was fine. Things were going good. But then my sophomore year, it should have stayed fine. It actually should have been spectacular. Because I discovered the biggest theory in history, the quadrant model, the theory of everything. So my mom and dad should have, I showed my mom and dad because they should have celebrated it. They should have been proud of me. And they should have been like, whoa, good job, Ryan. We're going to support you. And we're going to help you make it to the top because you did something fantastic. You did something wonderful. That's what a good mom and dad would have done. But as I said, my mom and dad already had an animosity toward me since high school, since the shoot away machine messed up my shot. And really, it started in middle school. My dad got the shoot away machine. My shot was messed up for that whole period because my dad messed it up. But then in college, I show my dad. I'm like, Dad, I discovered the theory of everything. Check this out. And I show my dad, there's the strong force, weak force, electromagnetism, gravity. The quintessence is a questionable fifth, but the fourth is transcendent. And I'm showing him all this stuff, and my dad's like, you have schizophrenia. Because I told my dad before I showed him, I was like, Dad, I don't have schizophrenia, or I don't have a delusion. This isn't schizophrenia. I discovered the theory of everything. But then my dad was like, you have schizophrenia. This is a delusion. And then my dad went to my mom, and my mom was like, Ryan. My dad was like, Ryan has schizophrenia. My mom was like, oh my God, Ryan, you need to start taking medicine. And this is a crazy thing. My mom said, and this is why your shot got messed up. in high school because you started to become mentally ill then, and now it's full-blown mental illness. You need to see a doctor. That was a crazy thing that's out of control. But so then, like I said, but my grandpa had taught that I was not allowed to talk about the past. And my dad enforced that. Like when I visited my dad in my freshman year of college, my dad said, you bring up the past, I'm going to fuck you up. So I was never allowed to talk about the past because of the abuse that happened. So I never told my mom and dad about the shoot away machine. I kept it to myself. In my mind, I was like, okay, I'm just going to get the quadrant model big. And then once the quadrant model is big, my mom and dad will respect me. And then I'll tell my mom and dad about the shoot away machine and about what happened. But then, as I said, I graduated from college with a 3.1 GPA. But I would have had a higher GPA, but my mom forced me to go to Kauai, and they messed up on my Scantron in my psychology class, so I got a D in that class. But I would have gotten an A if they would have figured out the Scantron, because that happened to me before. But my mom forced me to go to Kauai, so I couldn't even talk to the people at UCSD. And my mom's like, you have schizophrenia, you need to go to Kauai. Because I started to try to get the quadrant model out at that time. She's like, you have schizophrenia, you need to go to Kauai, you're not allowed in LA. She's talking to me on the phone. Again, my mom and dad wouldn't actually see me. So people were thinking that, like, they're interacting with me. My mom and dad saw me a little bit, but she's talking to me on the phone. They saw me a little bit in college. And like I said, in college, I was fine. Never got in any fights. You know, I visited my grandpa on his deathbed. I never got in any fights with my family. Everything was fine. But my mom and dad didn't believe the quadrant model. So my mom's like, you have schizophrenia. You're a fucking loser. You need to go to Kauai. You need to start taking medicine. I didn't have schizophrenia. I discovered theory of everything. So I go to Kauai. And my mom says, I say, no, I want to talk to the professors. I want to get the quadrant model big out here. And I was telling my mom, I want to go to grad school. You know, or I want to go to get a master's degree. And my mom's like, you can't get a master's degree. You can't go to grad school. You have schizophrenia. You're going to waste your time. You need medicine. And this is a crazy thing. My mom tells me that, now she'll be like, I just want you to get a job. No, my mom was the one who was telling me, you can't work. Because I was telling my mom, can I please, let me get a master's degree. I graduated with the 3.1 GPA. I can get a master's degree. And I could, and I will continue with my schooling. And then I would get a job and stuff. But my mom was like, no, you're mentally ill. I'm telling my mom, I discovered theory of everything. You guys can help me. I can be very successful. No, you're fucking crazy. You're fucking insane. You have schizophrenia, Ryan. You need to take medicine. So she says, you're either going to go to Kauai or you're going to be on the streets in Los Angeles. She's talking to me on the phone. I'm staying at my grandma's house. So then I go to Kauai. And I talked to my dad for the last time on the phone. And I said, Dad, and I tried to explain to him the quadrant model. I was like, Dad, listen, there's 4 parts of the stomach. But my dad was like, there's not 4 parts of the stomach. You have schizophrenia. And he hung up. And then so they forced me to go to Kauai. So then I'm on Kauai, and I'm with my grandpa. And my grandpa says, Ryan, you did not discover the theory of everything. And I was like, yes, I did. He was like, well, there's 8 planets, Ryan. There's not 4. And I was like, Grandpa, there's 4 terrestrial planets and there's 4 gas giant planets. My grandpa was like, Ryan, you did not discover theory of everything. You invented this because you're trying to stay dependent on your mom and dad. And really what you want is independence. And because my grandpa's a big fan of Ayn Rand. So my grandpa's like, really what you want is independence. Because really that's what everybody wants. Because when people are dependent, they are resentful of the people they're dependent on. And the people they're dependent on are resentful of them. You don't realize, but you are actually resentful of your parents because you are dependent on them. I'm like, I'm not resentful of my mom and dad. Especially not because I'm dependent on them. I'm upset that they won't talk to me. Because I was trying to talk to my mom and dad. And I was trying to get them. And my grandpa's like, no, you don't understand. You're resentful because you're dependent on them. What you really want is independence. So then my grandpa's telling this to my mom and dad. And my mom and dad misinterpret this. And they're like, okay, make him independent. Throw him out of our lives. Let's be mean and callous. Let's be cruel to him. They didn't realize that's not what my grandpa teaches. My grandpa doesn't teach that, but I'll get to that later. But my grandpa, so then I've discovered theory of everything. I need some help, and my grandpa doesn't believe me. So as I said, my grandpa's making me mop the floor and stuff because this is what my grandpa taught. My grandpa taught me, and this is what made me even more of a Marxist. But like I said, I was always an anti-white Marxist. I always saw myself as Jewish, and I was always against the white race. So maybe this was my karma. But my grandpa was making me mop the floors and stuff. And my grandpa taught me. He was like, this is one of the things he taught. It's a metapsychiatry teaching. His existential metapsychiatry. He would be like, in Buddhism, because metapsychiatry is a lot Buddhism. It's a lot of Buddhism mixed with Christianity. So my grandpa be like, in Buddhism, in the Zen and stuff, what they do, one of their meditative rituals is they carry water. They put sticks on their back and they just carry water for no reason. He says it's just to carry water. And he says, it seems like that's ridiculous, right? But no. What it does is by performing that ritual, just carrying water, it helps take your mind off of yourself. And that's ultimately what you want to do. By working, you transcend the self, because it takes your mind off of yourself so that you can transcend the self, so you can get to the flow. So like I said, my grandpa had me digging holes in his backyard, because my grandpa was like, by work, because he thought, he was like, Ryan, you invented the quadrilateral because you want to stay independent, and it was because you have a fragile ego and you want to stay dependent on your parents. That's why you invented the quadrilateral. So he thought by making me work, I will let go of the quadrilateral, which at the time he thought was a delusion. But he told my parents, he said, he's not schizophrenic. He said he doesn't have any symptoms of schizophrenia, but the quadrilateral is not true. And the only reason why he's doing this is because he wants to stay dependent on you guys. He said he's manipulating you guys. He said this is an ego strategy that he's using. It's an ego strategy. I'm not making this up. And what's so fucking funny is, I'm not gonna get into details, but so the crazy thing is, no, I wasn't a stupid ego strategy, Grandpa. You idiot. I discovered the theory of everything. I needed help. I needed support. And he made things so hard for me, because the fact of the matter was, I discovered the theory of everything. When you discover the theory of everything, what I was hoping for was, now I can make it to the top. I'm at the fucking top at this point. I discovered the theory of everything. This is big. Now I'm also a great basketball player. I also, when I play basketball, I can always write raps. In my mind, I'm thinking, I can make it to the top of the top. And I'm like, if my mom and dad will just support me and talk to me, I can make it to the top of the top, because I discovered the theory of everything. Now, if they would just support me, but my grandpa's making things hard for me, because I just want some support. But then my grandpa's like, no, what Ryan really wants is independence. So he's just making my life hard. And I just look at my grandpa and I'm like, you've made my life hard from the fucking beginning. You've never helped me. All you've made is my life hell. You've made my life hell, Grandpa. But he didn't get it. He's thinking, I'm helping him. He has I'm going to make him work and carry water. And that's going to make him let go of his He's going to transcend the self. No, I needed help. So my mom, but again, my grandpa says, well, your mom and dad misinterpreted it. I didn't tell them to just completely abandon you. What I did was I just wanted them to get you to work so that you would, but no, regardless of his intentions, they didn't fucking work. So my grandpa says, yeah, well, Ryan really wants his independence. So then my mom and dad are like, okay, make him independent. We just want him out of our lives. Make him independent. We want nothing to do with him. Get him out of our fucking lives. So I'm trying to call my mom, like, Mom, can I please come back to Los Angeles? Mom's like, no, you stay the fuck out of our lives. So then my grandpa's making me mop the floor. And then I don't know how to mop the floor because I never mopped before. And that's the ironic thing, is my mom and dad are like, my mom's like, make him independent. But my mom never had me do anything before. I never was taught how to cook. I never was taught how to clean. I never did laundry. I never did any chores. My mom did everything for me. And now all of a sudden she's like, make him independent. I want nothing to do with him. What a horrible person. So at this point, my grandpa's making me mop the floors, and I don't know how to mop the floors because I never mopped floors before. So my grandpa says, you don't know how to mop floors? And I said, no, I don't know how to mop floors. I never did it before. He's like, you are a parasite. Now my grandpa admits that he fucked up when he did that, because my grandpa teaches not to be mean like that, not to be judgmental. But my grandpa was being a dick at the time, because he didn't know that I discovered theory of everything, and he thought that I was making shit up. So I'm mopping the floor. He's like, you are a parasite. And I said, hey, Grandpa, that's not cool. That's what the Nazis called the Jews, parasites, and please don't do that. My grandpa was like, the Jews were parasites in Germany. So that's what made me even, I was always a Marxist, and I was always anti-white, but that's what made, but then I was like, okay, yeah, you really are a Nazi, Grandpa. So then I became even like 1,000 times more anti-white, 1,000 times more Marxist, but I always was that way. So as I said, like in my mind, this is the way I interpreted it. I was like, okay, you fucking white people. My grandpa I saw him as white, right? So I'm like, okay, so you're white. Okay, if you guys like working so hard, maybe it's because you guys are white people are by nature slaves. Because I saw myself as Jewish, right? So I'm like, the white people are by nature slaves, and that's why white people are so into working hard, because that's just their nature that they're trying to impose on on us, you know, people of color, the Jews and the black people. But I'm like, no. I was like, you know, maybe the reason why the Jews and the black people don't like working so hard is because, you know, the Jews, because my friend Noah was telling me how Jews would study and they don't really work that much. And they would like do study programs and stuff. And like the black people would just play basketball and rap and stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe the reason why is because the white people are made to work and to take care. Like maybe I was like, I remember I saw this like this painting of these. It was a remake of an old painting by a white person that showed a black woman taking care of a white woman, but it was by a Jewish guy. The Jewish guy made a remake of it, and he made the black woman or the white woman taking care of the black woman. And I was like, and I loved it. I was like, that's what I want to see. Because I was like, maybe you white people like to work so hard because you guys are by nature slaves. And the black people don't like to work hard and they're quote unquote lazy because they're by nature princes and kings. You know, because you know how the black people are always like, we's kings, we was kings and stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe by nature they're kings. And they're made to just, you know, to just play basketball and rap and do that stuff. And the white people should be taking care of them. And the same thing with the Jews. Like the Jews are made to, like, for me, I was good at basketball, rap, and also good at, like, I was smart. I discovered theory of everything. So I was like, yeah, maybe you're so into working because you're supposed to work so that I can work on my stuff. So you white people are so into working because you guys are by nature slaves. So why don't you guys become our slaves? That's the way I was seeing it. And again, I was anti-white and I wanted to race mix the white people. And so, and now I'm like, and then like I said, when I went to Israel for 2 weeks in 2012, the rabbi said that Germans are not able to understand that Hashem controls everything. So I'm looking at my grandpa and I'm like, okay, he's German. I was thinking, okay, yeah, he's not able to understand the quadrant model. And I was like, yeah, that's because, you know, by nature he's not able to understand. So I was like, yeah. And so this gave me more incentive to mix the white people. So I just became even more of a Marxist. And like I said, my grandpa was an Ayn Rand fan. And he's into working hard and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you white people are so into working hard just because you guys are, you know, I thought that my grandpa's, you know, metapsychiatry and being into working hard and all that stuff. I thought my metapsychiatry, the spirituality was just white supremacy. I was like, you guys are just white supremacists. I always saw spirituality as just white supremacy. You know, work hard and, you know, just accept, you know, so like even when my grandpa was saying like, you know, Ryan, you know, all the bad stuff that happened to you, you know, never talk about the past. So I was like, even that's white supremacy, because I'm like, you know, that's what the white people say to the blacks, and what white people say to the Jews, like, don't talk about the past, don't talk about all the bad stuff that happened, and just accept, and everything is fine. And I was like, you know, I saw myself as like a black guy who's being abused, and my grandpa's like a religious person, and that's why I was a Marxist, because the Marxists say, like, no, don't just accept. If you're being mistreated, then fucking tear down the system, tear it down. So now I realize I was a Satanist, and I'll get to that. But that's the way I was. So I was a Marxist, and I was like, spirituality is just a veil for white supremacy. And I thought that my grandpa was just a white supremacist, and I was a Marxist, and I hated religion. I thought that religion was just to maintain white supremacy and maintain the white race, and I wanted to destroy the white race because I saw myself as Jewish, and I was like that my whole life. I always wanted to mix the white people, you know. So and I, like, my whole life, like I said, I would always see like white people, like white women with black eyes, and I always loved it. And I knew that white men didn't like it, but I always loved it, you know. So, but anyway, so I became even more of a Marxist. And like I said, I tried to talk to my mom and dad, and I'm like, Mom, can I please talk to Dad? And my mom was like, he's never gonna fucking talk to you, you fucking loser. And like I said, this is the time when I go on INTP Central and I start writing all my Marxist ideas. And I start writing my Marxist ideas on Facebook, but my mom was deleting all or hiding all my posts. So this is the thing. I was posting all my quadrant model stuff. So again, I could have got that stuff famous, but my mom was hiding all that stuff. So then I'm trying to post all my... So then I'm not getting any response from that. I don't know my mom's hiding it. Then I start posting my Marxist stuff. And then, like I said, I was asking people for basketball videos, but then I realized my mom was hiding my stuff, and then I unhid everything. And the people who said they had my basketball videos, then they said they didn't have it anymore. And probably because I was posting my Marxist stuff, anti-religious, and they were religious. And my mom, now I don't want to, my mom would be like, oh, don't blame me. Don't blame me, you motherfucker. You take responsibility. But again, she messed up, dude. So I'm trying to talk to my mom. I'm like, Mom, can I please talk to Dad? My mom's like, he's never gonna fucking talk to you, you fucking loser. Don't you remember how you were in high school, how you treated him? And I tried to tell my mom, It wasn't my fault. It was the shoot away machine. She's like, oh my God, you're such a fucking loser. If anything, the shoot away machine would have helped you. Oh my God, he's never going to talk to you, you fucking loser. And I'd be like, Mom. So I would call my mom again later. Mom, can I please, I want to explain to Dad what happened with the shoot away. Oh my God, you're stuck in the past. This is why you're schizophrenic. Didn't your grandpa teach you never to talk about the past? This is why you're schizophrenic, because you're stuck in the past. Why do you fucking care about basketball, you fucking loser? Oh my fucking, you're such a fucking, you're a schizophrenic freak. Your dad doesn't want to talk to you. He's embarrassed he has a schizophrenic loser son. I'm like, let me just talk to Dad. I want to explain to him about the shoot away, because it wasn't my fault. My mom's like, oh my God, no talk about the fucking past. Hang up. And for the next eons, I would be, every time I try to talk to my mom, it wasn't my fault what happened. Can I please explain to my dad? No talk about the fucking past. Hang up. That's the way it's been. It's been hellish.